Hello, I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. Today, I'm going to be doing a storytelling that's going to be based upon the recent incident that had happened to me, that I'm not going to go into full details based upon that, but I will be giving a story that I had written recently and giving some details as to what this story means as I do the storytelling. So, the story that I named it is The Unraveling of the Blindfold. Rainbow Warrior, and that is me in this story. So, let's begin with the storytelling. The Unraveling of the Blindfold. Rainbow Warrior found the light at the end of the dark tunnel with no escape. This light seemed to be so bright and true. It ended up being a light with a well-hidden bomb that would change Rainbow Warrior's heart in more ways than she could ever imagine. This light was the first light that began to let her see through them in order to reveal the most frightening things she didn't know existed. Rainbow Warrior learned that it is a scary world after all. This world that claims to be a world that was made with good intentions from a so-called higher power is nothing but a devious plot that those with true hearts will end up being destroyed by in so many ways. This so-called miracle that those who have a true heart are given is actually the place that we are warned about ending up in if we don't follow this so-called higher power's rules while we exist in this place full of misery. One day, Rainbow Warrior walked into what seemed like a dream. She never experienced anything like this before. This dream was like she was in a new world that was a cloudy and foggy image that had a bright and colorful rainbow over it. Rainbow Warrior was fearful, yet also had a feeling of hope, all at the same time. The person underneath this rainbow seemed like no other person she ever knew to ever be possible to exist in this scary world. Rainbow Warrior hesitated with great fear because shortly before this dream, she had gone through the worst nightmare of her life. That nightmare was the first light that turned into the unexpected bomb that changed Rainbow Warrior's heart forever. That light happened to be known as Publicidad, who Rainbow Warrior believed was also a true heart, but ended up being nothing but a black heart covered up by many bright, beautiful colors. So, let's get into that. Now, yes, my story, the first light at the end of the dark tunnel, that is referring to how Ken had helped me come to my realization as to my situation that I had been in for most of my life, and helping me understand that I do deserve better than that, and that's not right, and I should have a better life, and I should deserve to have a better life that is filled with people that do treat me right and I could trust and respect. So I always refer to that person because that's just how it ended up, because of what had happened as to them traumatizing me. As to why, I mean, like I had explained in the previous video recently, is that your expectations of people has a lot to do with how it will affect you and how badly it will affect you. Like I had stated, that even though Ken was just a friend, and most people would have thought that my father or the one I was in an intimate relationship would have traumatized me more. No, actually it was Ken that had given me the worst trauma symptoms after that, those events that happened and followed afterwards. So now I'm into a story with the person with the rainbow behind them or over them. So this person I had met pretty shortly after the recent bullying incident that I had been going over in my videos, based upon also what happened as to my trauma that happened afterwards. And that was mainly about puberty diarist, as to what had happened and how I became traumatized after all of those incidents and how it ended up. So I met Grumpster, and believe me, I was really fearful, but it really was just like I explained it. It was like a big cloud, and I really just automatically felt a connection, like, you know, this person seems good and unbelievable. You know, it was just unexpected and it was unbelievable to me, because at that point in my life, I had just gone through a deep depression, and I was extremely traumatized by the recent bullying incident, based upon what puberty diarist had done, based on humiliating me and, you know, saying really the most despicable and cruel things that have ever been said to me by, of course, like my now ex-friend Brian had told me, is that the people that you thought would care about you the most and that you thought highly of or cared about the most are the ones that are going to hurt you the most in the end. You know, not the people that you had, you know, a little bit of trust, a little bit of expectations. You know, sure, it's going to upset you and make you feel bad, but it's the people that you cared about the most or thought highly of the most. And that's very true, because in that case, Ken was the only one that I thought highly of. And like I had compared him to Grumpster and my father, is that I actually had the highest expectations out of him over those other two. So back to Grumpster. I remember when I first met him, I was filled with fear, but I also had hope for the first time since the recent incident. So I was like, I remember contacting Madame the Citrus, and she's like, well, you know, just test it out, give it a try. I'm like, okay. So with the trauma that I had gone through, many people don't quite understand. Like, I don't feel comfortable being hugged, touched, you know, and there's people that will, you know, kiss you, you know, on the cheek, and that's their form of greeting. So many people had gotten, let's just say, insulted when I had asked them not to do those things. And I realized that I don't need to explain why that I don't want that. People should just take it as it is. I don't need to explain why I was traumatized as to why I don't like to be hugged, touched, or kissed. And I feel extremely anxious, and things just happen due to that trauma. And again, I don't know why that was what turned out as to what happened with the recent bullying incident, as to how it turned to where that happened to me as an effect, as to how I reacted to that trauma. So anyways, let's just say that Grumpster was the first person that I actually thought the relationship would last, even if it didn't turn into an intimate partnership, or if it didn't even last in that. I actually thought that he would be somebody in my life forever. But something ended up happening, and it was much worse than I could ever imagine, especially for this person, which I'll be describing in my storytelling. So that is what this story is based upon, is the recent incidents that happened with Grumster, and showing how I had actually tried to trust another person. Let's just say that one thing I never understood about Ken was he has a lot of trust issues with people, and basically, always talk to me, and, I never quite understood it, but I can honestly say I was digging hard throughout all of this after this incident happened as to what words of wisdom or things that he had said that actually could tie into what I've been going through. And actually I found one thing, but it didn't quite tie. But I just recently realized that what he said about trusting, I don't trust any of them, or things that he said based upon trust, and telling me I'm too trusting and stuff like that. I really understand why he doesn't trust people, and maybe has very tiny amount of people that he has some trust for. I really can understand that now. And also based upon what my ex-friend Brian had taught me, is that the people that you do care about the most are the ones that are going to affect you the most if they do betray you or deceive you. And I guess, he's absolutely correct. And that's how I describe as the people you have the most expectations for, as in trust levels. So let's continue. Okay, so Rainbow Warrior was hesitant to proceed with giving this person that had a rainbow over them a chance to enter her heart that has been destroyed in so many ways. Although Rainbow Warrior foolishly convinced herself to believe that a miracle has actually finally happened for her. This unimaginable miracle happened to be known as a man named Grumster. Rainbow Warrior put in as much effort as possible to try this unexpected miracle in her life. She was so damaged by her first perceived miracle that she had been exhausted from putting in a numerous amount of effort into giving her new perceived miracle the same feelings that he had given to her. Although Grumster didn't see these gifts that Rainbow Warrior had given to him. That goes to where I had discussed about I don't feel comfortable, and it was very hard for me, especially right after that incident happened, the last trauma, as to even trusting people and feeling comfortable around people. I still had that issue even when I was with Grumster, is being around two or more people makes me extremely nervous and uncomfortable. I realize now why I began to feel that way. I didn't understand why my heart was racing so hard when I was in larger groups, more than two people, and why I just felt so like I was in a I was like dizzy, almost like I was in a cloud, and had no feeling under my feet. Well, now I understood afterwards, but most people don't understand it. So I can actually understand because why they don't understand, because I used to be them. I used to look at other people who tell me this like, I just don't understand. That's because you're not really going to understand, and you shouldn't judge people based upon why they feel that way or think that it's something easy. It's hard enough for them to deal with it. Believe me, it's very hard, especially when you really want to open up. Like, I had seen Grumster as being a very good person. Of course, everybody else did too. Let's just say he puts on a very good mask, because believe me, many people would be extremely, extremely shocked. I mean, Ken, but Grumster, oh man, people would be like, they're like, oh, based upon things that had happened. So let's get back to this. One dark, gloomy day, when this rainbow ended up having a dark cloud over it, was when Grumster and Rainbow Warrior's miracle would start to end. This dark cloud is known as Asuka. Asuka tried to hide her black heart behind Grumster's rainbow. But Rainbow Warrior could already see that her miracle would eventually end for her. Asuka tried to rain on Rainbow Warrior, but was infuriated that Rainbow Warrior was much stronger than her toxic raindrops. Asuka knew from the very start that her plot to try and destroy this miracle would, in fact, be one that she didn't have the capability to achieve easily, like she has with the many others she has already destroyed. Rainbow Warrior's intellectual abilities were too overpowering for Asuka to manage to convince Rainbow Warrior to buy into her evil plots, to have control over her. Asuka had to turn to the most evil plots to attempt to destroy Rainbow Warrior. Let's just say that certain people are very obvious, and in this case, Asuka is very obvious. Even others that have known her and she has already deceived or betrayed, it's very easily to spot. Even before I met this person, let's just say, based upon what I had been told that she was doing and had seen her doing, I was like, wow. So I really did keep my eye out. It was very obvious. Like, let's just say that, women and men, there's men that also do it, is say, men are like dogs. Well, you know what? Women can be that too. It has nothing to do with gender. Let's just say there's many female pigs out there too. I mean, as for Asuka, believe it or not, if a male had done what she did, they'd most likely be in jail because she had actually flashed me her private parts. One time she had actually stuck her finger up her vagina in front of me and two other males. So, even males, say, they think with their, dick. But you know what? There's many females that think with their tuna boat crotch is what I'll call it. So, that's what really disgusts me, is that, that can be used as an excuse as for, even sexual assault. People will say, well, men are like dogs, don't lead them on, don't kiss them, don't hold their hands, because men can't control themselves. Now, I'm going to stop right there. The first thing I thought of is actually my ex-friend, Ken. I'm like, when they told me that, even females, I'm like, no. I was like, that is so untrue. I'm like, just from knowing, Ken, and then I also thought about my friend John Paul, I'm thinking, no, that is absolutely not true. Men have brains. They think here. There's no force over them like, they need to have, sex. I've heard that many times throughout my life from many other males. Let's just say that that's why I actually went to Ken and John Paul to ask for advice, because I wanted logical advice. Most of my other male friends that I've known and whatnot, they would even say, they wouldn't give logical advice. And a lot of them actually say what females say. They say men are like dogs, we need, this, sexual intimacy, blah, 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 or else, they're going to die, So, anyways, I could say to one person, just disregard my text. I got the answer from Santa Viking. Asuka used that one person that Rainbow Warrior saw as her unexpected miracle in order to try and destroy her. Grumster was easily manipulated by Asuka because he is in fact an extremely weak person. Grumster followed Asuka's demands to harm Rainbow Warrior. Rainbow Warrior slowly began to lose her bright colors due to the overwhelming pain that Grumster had thrown upon her unexpectedly. After so many strikes of evil plots from Grumster, Rainbow Warrior's bright, beautiful colors faded away, to where you could barely see them anymore. One day, Rainbow Warrior had made her final attempt to try and win back this unexpected miracle. Although this was the day that Grumpster erased all of Rainbow Warrior's colors by doing the most evil act that Rainbow Warrior could not even imagine Grumpster doing to anyone. Rainbow Warrior was stunned and devastated by this huge, unexpected lightning strike that was hidden behind Grumpster's rainbow. This was the final evil plot that finally gave Asuka her victory to manipulate Grumpster to turn himself over to Asuka's full power and control over him. Grumpster was now Asuka's main assistant to help her continue destroying others. Was, I should say, is now. Still is. Asuka is a dark cloud who thrives on harming others. Asuka now has her own personal assistant to be more capable of destroying many others. This is because most others who know Grumpster perceive him to be a true heart that would never intentionally harm another person who also has a true heart. Asuka, on the other hand, is a very obvious, devious dark cloud that most people can see for many miles away. Very true. Postscript to Grumpster and Asuka. You may have taken away that unexpected miracle from me, but you didn't accomplish winning because Rainbow Warrior is much stronger than the two of you put together. Rainbow Warrior hopes that your fake rainbow with the dark cloud behind it will be abolished for good. For both that fake rainbow and dark cloud don't even deserve to exist, even in this scary world full of misery. So that was based upon the recent incident that happened to me where I had said that I had to be off for a while due to that experience and how it negatively affected me. So hopefully in time I will be going into more detail based upon the recent incident to, I should look at it in a positive view, is that it will hopefully help others understand domestic violence more, considering now I have experienced it in another type of relationship, and helping others understand that no matter what type of relationship it is, it can affect the victim in negative ways, even worse than what people would expect based upon the type of relationship that they had with that person. As I had stated in the previous video, is that most would have expected, like I said, is that either my father or Grumpster, the intimate partnership, would have harmed me the most and traumatized me the most and whatnot. And that's very untrue. It was actually the friendship with Ken that had traumatized me the most. So I hope to see you next time when I do get back to in my own self and healing from what had happened to me and moving on as I am doing now, and moving on and going upwards again. That's all I can do. And based upon Ken's advice and everything else is what I've been focusing on, and also a certain other friend that I had just met recently as to their advice to me and support, which I truly do appreciate. So moving upwards and working to go upwards is what I am doing. I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. I'll see you next time.